for Three Men and a Baby. And this is... I do want to talk about do you remember there was a ghost in your movie?
Three Men and a Baby is one of those family films from the 80s that many people fondly remember, but the movie has managed to carve out a niche for itself with the bizarre rumor that you can see a ghost in the background of one scene.
Hey, did you guys see Three Men and a Baby?
Yeah.
Did you know there's a ghost in there behind the window?
Quite a strange thing to be associated with a family film. So what is the story behind this supposed ghost, and how did it gain traction in the first place? Three Men and a Baby is a fun and fluffy little story about three bachelors who find a baby left on their doorstep and have to work together to take care of her. It's also an early example of the man-child movie, as the characters essentially have to grow up and look past their own selfishness to be proper parents. And there's also a convoluted mix-up with a brick of cocaine to throw some hijinks into the mix. Aside from the ghost stuff, there's actually some interesting trivia behind this movie. It was the highest grossing movie the year it came out, beating out other high-profile movies like Fatal Attraction. It's one of the scant few films that was directed by Leonard Nimoy of Star Trek fame, and it's based on a French film from a few years earlier, translated as Three Men and a Cradle. But the thing that most people remember about this movie is the urban legend, so let's get into that. In the house where Three Men and a Baby was filmed, a 9-year-old boy committed suicide with a shotgun. The parents, despondent and in mourning, sell the house to a studio that uses it to film the movie. No one realized the house was haunted until well after the movie finished filming, and the ghastly apparition appears in the background of one scene. The studio couldn't cut the scene and just hoped that no one would notice the boy in the background. One person who did see the boy was the child's own mother, who was driven mad by it and has been confined to an insane asylum ever since. So that's the urban legend, but what's the truth? What is this mysterious figure in the background of this shot? The answer is... Ted Danson, or at least a cardboard cutout of Ted Danson. Ted plays an actor in the movie, and there was a scene cut where he had this cardboard stand he made for a dog food commercial. When they were filming this scene, they simply forgot to remove the prop from the background and didn't catch it in time to retake the shot. We can even see the cardboard cutout later in the movie in much more detail. And if that wasn't enough evidence to discount the ghost theory, the movie wasn't even shot in an actual house. It was all shot on a soundstage in Toronto, so no family could have ever lived in this particular location prior to the movie. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already know this. If you've ever heard of the mysterious ghost in the first place, then the explanation was probably not far behind.
Did you know there's a ghost in there behind the window?
That's an urban legend. It's just a piece of cardboard.
What's interesting is the way that this rumor spread in the first place, and how something like this is simply unlikely to happen again, unless intentionally created by the studio, such as this viral video for the remake of Carrie. Or under very specific circumstances, like my own experience seeing something in a movie that may not have been there. During the credits of The Wolverine, I swear that I saw a shadow of Quicksilver zip onto the screen and then zip back out, but I have never been able to corroborate this with any other source. Anyway, back in the old days before discs and digital media, movies were on VHS tapes that were always a little fuzzy and only had a resolution of about 480p. That means that back in the day, people would have seen this, but with HD transfers, we can clearly see that it's this. The rumor spread when people would take the movie home, usually through rental chains like Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, and the grainy image on the old tube TVs gave this vague shape of a human-looking form without clearly seeing that it's a cardboard cutout.
Selig Danson and Gutenberg. And I don't know who played the baby.
It actually shares a lot of similarities with the famous music mystery, The Secret Death of Paul McCartney. In 1966, Paul McCartney was killed in a car crash, and the record company decided to cover it up. They replaced him with a lookalike named William Campbell or Billy Shears. And the remaining Beatles, who were distraught by all of this, started leaving clues in their albums to let the world know that Paul McCartney is no more. There were many clues that people pointed to in support of this theory, including discrepancies in album artwork, newer photos of Paul that looked different from older photos, and secret messages in songs when you played them backwards. But the most relevant clue for our purposes is in the song Strawberry Fields Forever. At the very end of the song, you can faintly hear John Lennon say something in the background. Due to the technical limitations at the time and the lack of fidelity that listeners had access to, it sounds like he says... But nowadays we can clearly hear that he's saying this. The rumors were fervently denied by the Beatles and their management, with Paul even doing an interview with Life magazine to try and quash them, but it persisted and people were convinced that the way they heard the songs and the way they saw these clues were telling them the truth.
So is it some kind of a magazine?
No, evidently, operator, there is a rumor going around that Paul McCartney is dead. And supposedly in code, these numbers come off the albums. When you play the albums backwards, you get these numbers in code.
While the 3 Men and a Baby hoax didn't generate that kind of fervor, the story did get picked up at various outlets and appears to be responsible for a huge spike in rentals as people wanted to see the ghost for themselves.
You think it's Ghost Boy?
I think it is Ghost Boy. Actually, I'm going to call Ted and Steve because I think we participate in the video sales. It's a ghost.
The urban legend, however, didn't do much to help the sequel, which made less than half the domestic box office of the original film, and as far as I can tell, there were no reports of a ghost in that one. The evidence is pretty clear that there is no ghost to be found in 3 Men and a Baby, but it's still interesting to see how the urban legend popped up in the first place. While an outright hoax like this is unlikely to happen again, misunderstandings and misinformation are things that we continue to deal with to this day. From the innocuous like that gif of Henry Cavill's beard growing in that Mission Impossible trailer, to something more worrying like the rise of deepfakes. As for the future of 3 Men and a Baby, there were plans for a third movie called 3 Men and a Bride, but those seem to have been scrapped as Disney is currently working on a reboot starring Zac Efron. Will there be a reference to the hoax in that movie? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But for now, we can confidently say that this mystery has been put to bed.